You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marcagiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hey, it's Dr. J in the house. Evan Brand, how are we doing today?
Hey man, life is good. I'm ready to talk with you about the brain. I've been trying to figure out if my brain is messed up or what. So you've been giving me some good advice. We were reviewing lab results together off air. So it's always fun. It's less fun when you have to dig into the trenches on your own, but it's still fun. So I appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really excited to chat with you about a whole bunch of things we can do to improve brain health, as well as kind of natural nootropics, which are just essentially compounds, medicinal compounds, even some kind of pseudo pharmaceutical compounds to help improve cognitive function and brain performance. So, why don't we dive in? So off the bat, one of the first things we can do to help improve brain performance is decrease inflammation in the brain. That's like the low-hanging fruit. The more inflamed we are neurologically, the more microglial cell activation we're going to have, and that's going to create brain fog, right? Microglial cells are these immune cells in the brain. And the more inflammation we have, the more these brain cells or these immune cells get activated. And part of the side effect of inflammation in the brain and this immune reaction is going to be brain fog and cognitive issues. So the first thing, we decrease inflammation. How do we do that? We do it by cutting gluten and refined sugars and refined carbohydrates out. That's going to be the first thing. The inflammatory grains and or refined junk and trans fats, these things are going to be more inflammatory to the gut. Inflammation in the gut is going to cause inflammation in the brain. So the more we can actually help our gut, the more we're going to help our brain. And the second thing is actually decreasing dysbiotic bacteria. Dysbiotic bacteria has a compound called LPS, lipopolysaccharide, or another term for it's actually called endotoxin, and that can make its way through the gut into the bloodstream to the brain and can create mood issues and cognitive issues as well. So getting the inflammation in the gut, getting the stress out of the diet is going to be huge for cognitive health.
Yeah, and I'm going to take what you said just a step further, because people may have said, they may have heard, oh, whoa, dysbiosis, LPS, brain, what's going on here? So basically what Justin's saying is there's various infections you can pick up from the soil, the food, the water, the air, your partner, your spouse, your kids. You can pass bugs between each other. Justin and I have tested literally countless, thousands and thousands and thousands of stool and urine tests. And what we find is that these gram-negative bacteria produce the LPS. So if you have bacterial overgrowth, whether you call it SIBO, whether you call it dysbiosis, whether you call it IBS from your gastro doc that told you have that, it doesn't matter what the term is. It matters if there's bugs in the gut, your brain will not function well. And so when we talk about the topic of nootropics, which I was actually hired by a publishing company to write a book on this topic, which was kind of cool. The thing is, you can't go straight to the brain pills or the smart pills or the smart drugs. You can't go straight to that if you just haven't addressed the gut and you haven't addressed the diet. Like you see some dude, drinking a 5-hour energy and he's eating like a gluten-free cupcake, but he wants to improve his brain function. It's like, smart drugs and nootropics, this is like a level 301 course. Like 101 brain health is the stuff you just mentioned, the gut, the diet, etc. And then you graduate your way up. But in society, we like the quick fix. So we go straight to just buying these pills, which I don't know. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying you can spend more money on food first and get your gut fixed, then go to supplements.
Absolutely. So first thing is get the food right, get the gut right. In the gut, when I mean by saying get the gut right, there could be SIBO, there could be infections, there could be some leaky gut caused by the above, by the food, by the gut, by the low stomach acid and enzymes, by the dysbiosis, by the H. pylori fungus, yeast parasites. So get that in order first. That's the low-hanging fruit. And again, that's the non-sexy stuff on the cognitive nootropic side, because if you look at any blogs or professionals that talk about brain health, a lot of times they're not talking about the gut when they're connecting the brain. Now, Dr. Perlmutter's done a book recently called, I think, The Brain Maker, where he talks about like probiotics and these things. I don't think a lot is addressed on infections. I think a lot's addressed on like good bacteria and the bacterial imbalances, but not a lot is talked about infection. So that's an important component. So once we have that right, then we can work on, other nutrients to dial things in. So a low-hanging fruit for brain health is B vitamins. Now, first off, are you low in B vitamins, or do you need more B vitamins because you're in stress? Do you need more B vitamins because you're not making your internal B vitamins because of dysbiosis? And or you're not absorbing it well. So you got to figure out why you need them. So
explain that real quick. That's pretty mind-blowing concept for people. You mentioned manufacturing B vitamins in your gut and that being impaired due to dysbiosis.
Yeah. So healthy, good bacteria actually eats your poop, or actually, eats, let's just say this, they eat your poop and they poop nutrition back. Bad bacteria eats your nutrients and then poops poop back. So good bacteria takes not so nice stuff and makes nutrition out of it. Bad bacteria eats your good stuff, your vitamins and minerals, and actually produces more toxins on the flip side, like LPS or various things like that that also can disrupt your motility as well. So good bacteria will actually improve vitamin K, exogenous production. It'll also improve B vitamin production as well. So that's really important. So if you can tolerate and you can consume healthy fermentable vegetables, probiotic rich foods, that's great. If you can't tolerate it, it probably tells me there's some SIBO or some bacterial overgrowth that also needs to be addressed. But on that note, the next component is, adding some supplemental B vitamins can be very, very helpful. So, I have a mitochondrial support that I take that has a lot of B vitamins in it. I'll even take some supplemental amino acids with B vitamins in it as well. I think B vitamins are a great low-hanging fruit. And again, this is a concept I hear all the time. People say, hey, I take B vitamins and I notice my urine gets really yellow. I'm just peeing it all out. Well, number one, you're really only going to be able to pee out water-soluble nutrients. So you're only going to be able to pee out, your B vitamins, so to speak. All right. Maybe vitamin C. Too much vitamin C will cause loose stools. So if you're taking too much vitamin C, you'll know it because you'll start getting loose stools. But with B vitamins, I want to be peeing my B vitamins out. If I'm not peeing my B vitamins out, I'm not reaching saturation, right? So let's say this is the amount of B vitamins my body needs. Let's say I take this much, right? I consume this much, right? So the spread that I'm going to be peeing out will be this much. I don't pee everything out. I'm just going to be peeing out the spread. Right.
Makes
and the
sense.
thing is, you don't know how much you actually need on a given day. So I'm fine supplementally taking maybe a little bit on the excess side and then letting my body deal with it. It's not like it's a big stressor, whereas a fat soluble vitamin and it's harder to excrete. It's a water soluble vitamin, and we're taking them in really good forms, P5P activated, methylated B vitamins. So they're really good. We're not going to take any folic acid. We're going to take activated folate. So I'm taking a reasonable amount of a high quality activated B vitamin supplement. I think is a great low hanging fruit.
Yeah, here's the thing that's kind of annoying with the whole methylation conversation is people come up with their MTHFR genetic defect and they walk around with it like it's some type of label. Like, I'm MTHFR, oh my God. And they act like the protocol has to be so different. Justin and I basically treat everyone as if they have methylation issues. All that means is we're going to use higher quality nutrients. We're not going to use a folic acid. We're going to use the activated folate. Maybe you need a little bit higher amount. But so many people get a diagnosis or they look at their gene and they see one SNP off and then like, oh my God, can you work with me? I have MTHFR. Like, it's going to change much. How much percent do you think it really changes in the whole equation?
It doesn't change that much. I mean, a lot of the things that we're doing kind of already are built in and around that, right? So of course, a lot of the synthetic folic acid, we're making sure any supplement's not going to contain that, right? Or it's not going to contain junky B vitamins that you may see in like a 5-hour energy drink. Number two, we're cutting out fortified foods that are going to have folic acid in it. Things like orange juice, things like your grains, right? These are the big fortified folic acid foods. Again, the government found out a long time ago that, hey, folic acid's going to prevent like these neural tube birth defects. The problem is you still have a large percent of the population that still cannot activate that folic acid and can convert it into, folinic acid to LMTHF folate. And some can actually create some of these dangerous cancer-like metabolites. So we want to make sure we eat like good quality animal foods that are going to have good folate in there, lots of good green leafy vegetables, potentially egg yolks, these things that are really high in choline as well. So we're going to be getting all of our really good folate. And then we would supplement with additional high quality activated folate, activated B vitamins. If someone has MTHFR, we may look at supplementing, separating the folate and the B vitamins out from the actual B vitamin complex. And we may do various other forms of B12 like adenosyl or hydroxy B12, typically sublingually, to help bypass the gut as well. But there's three major rabbit holes in functional medicine. MTHFR is one, the other one is Lyme, and the third one is mycotoxins. And the reason why is because any symptom can be tossed in the basket of those three conditions. So if you have any condition, any symptom at all, someone could point you to one of those three areas.
Yes.
And my thing is there's a rabbit hole for those areas. And if you focus on one of those three, you may be missing the simple low-hanging fruit underneath, where we should be starting first. So I look at it and say, okay, maybe we go down those avenues, but we're going to deal with diet, lifestyle, digestion. We're going to look at your hormones. We're going to look at your gut. We're going to look at toxicity. We're going to make sure you're infection free. We're going to make simple changes. We're going to kind of write off all the foundational stuff. And then we may look at doing testing down below to look deeper if we're not seeing resolution. But I can't tell you how many patients I see that are complaining of MTHFR or Lyme or mycotoxin or mold issues, and they have multiple gut infections. Their diet sucks. They're not digesting their food. They don't have good absorption of their nutrition. They're not sleeping well. They have significant nutrient deficiencies, very poor neurotransmitter function, and they're sitting worried about these little rat holes that you can go down. Not saying those little rat holes or rabbit holes in functional medicine aren't legitimate. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they need to be looked at later on. They're not the low-hanging fruit. And because any symptom you have could be put in one of those three categories, it's really easy to be jumped on that track.
Yes. Well, and it sounds sexy too. And
Yes.
One of our mutual friends and colleagues, Jay Davidson, he's a chiropractor who focuses a lot on Lyme. He actually turned the corner and he used to just do Lyme. Everything he saw was Lyme. And all these protocols he did were all Lyme protocols. So you know what? Last time we talked and I interviewed him for my summit, he goes, Evan, you've been doing it right all along. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, treating Lyme disease, I used to go straight after Lyme. He goes, I don't do that anymore. I go after the parasites because it turns out if you just get rid of parasites and bacterial infections and you treat those, the Lyme disappears with it. He said, so here I was doing all these Buhner protocols and these other protocols for Lyme, but I should have just went after parasites and bacteria. And now his success rate is even higher. So that just makes me happy.
Yeah. And also a lot of the herbs we may use to go after some of the gut stuff will have some anti-Lyme effects as well. So cat's claw is a big, anti-Lyme one, but it's also really good for biofilms. Higher dose berberine and golden seals, also helpful for Lyme. Silver is also a really good biofilm buster. It's also helpful for Lyme. So there's a lot of the adrenal supports like eleuthero and ashwagandha, which are really good for the adrenals, also helpful for Lyme. So a good functional medicine practitioner, they're going to create a protocol that has a pretty good net where it's targeted, but other things that we're not going after specifically may still get helped underneath that umbrella.
I love saying that. I love saying like, hey, we're going to kill things that might not even show up on a test. For example, like maybe we got a false negative of a parasite, but we did this protocol to kill the bacteria, but the herbs to kill the bacteria also have anti-parasitic benefit. So maybe we got rid of something that you didn't even know was there that was affecting you. So that's the fun thing. Now, let's go back to the topic of the brain. You mentioned a few things. You mentioned the cat's claw. Cat's claw can be considered something that can help the brain. You mentioned ashwagandha. You mentioned adaptogenic herbs. You and I love adaptogens. We know that whether we're talking holy basil or rhodiola or American ginseng, or you've got like Korean ginseng, there's many, many ginsengs. These all help in terms of modulating cortisol. And that screws up your brain. If you've got levels of cortisol that are too high or too low, it kind of mimics the same thing. And this is why you don't want to guess, because we've seen people where they're exhausted and we think, oh my God, this person must have low cortisol. But then you test it and it's actually high all day. And we're thinking, oh, good thing we didn't throw this person on a bunch of licorice because their cortisol was already so sky high.
Right.
But
go ahead.
I was just going to say, but if they read online adrenal fatigue, licorice, it's almost like it's almost like a gut reaction. It's like adrenal fatigue, licorice. But if you don't know that there's a caveat to that, you could mess yourself up.
Yeah, it's nice to know your pattern, especially if there's reverse cortisol patterns. That's helpful because there are certain compounds we may give when cortisol is higher versus lower. So it's nice to know that so we can be specific. And also, just to kind of highlight, higher levels of cortisol can actually atrophy the areas of the hippocampus. And these are areas that are profoundly important for learning and memory. So someone talks about stress and adrenal dysfunction. Can that affect, can I, by supporting that, improve my IQ? I would say, yeah. Dave Asprey's done some testing on himself where he's found his IQ has gone up 10 to 20 points by just improving, inflammation and brain health. So I would say, yeah, if your brain's inflamed, huge. I know in college, it would take me a very long time to finish tests because I would have to like double and triple check all my questions. And I was still eating some things back then, 15 years ago, that was causing my brain to be more inflamed. And I was having insecurity in my cognitive, processes. I would just double and triple checking and just not feeling confident and just being slower in my mental processes. And I noticed that as I tweaked my diet and got inflammation down and supported some of these brain nutrients, I was able to whiz through questions faster and be accurate, but also more, let's just say, succinct and faster going through these tests.
Yeah, I'm always impressed with your brain. Like your brain, I don't think I've ever chatted with you where your brain wasn't working properly. Like you're always able to articulate well. You're always able to like zoom in and zoom out. I've always like looked up to you for that. It's super cool to see somebody that has a good functioning brain, because in society, we have so many people's brains that don't work like yours.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think number one, for everyone listening, get the inflammation down. That's number one. Make sure your food's nutrient dense, choline, lots of green vegetables that have a lot of good B vitamins and folate in there, a lot of your good essential fatty acids. That's really important. And then from there, play around with some of the other compounds that can be helpful. So for instance, medicinal mushrooms, I think, are great. Right now I do reishi, and I'm doing I do reishi. Is it maitake?
Yeah, maitake.
So yep. I'm doing shiitake and reishi every day. So I'm doing 4 to 6 caps right now, just because it's getting a little bit colder. I'm around sick kids sometimes, so I'm just keeping my immune system pretty strong. And then I'm at a pretty good high dose of ashwagandha. And then I bump up additional B vitamins on top of that. Now you can keep it simple. For me and for my job, I'm constantly having to program, like run through mental programs and thinking and troubleshooting. I want that high level of cognitive stuff. So you got to figure out where you're at, how stressful your life is on a cognitive side, and then you can kind of dose things in, more steadily. If your job isn't that stressful, then maybe just a good diet and just a few supplements is fine. If you're a programmer or you're constantly problem solving, then maybe you need more nutrients for the brain.
I would even argue you could add in like some lion's mane too. I've been having really good experiments. I've been running with like a mixture of the lion's mane, the reishi, maitake, shiitake, and then a little bit of ginkgo, kind of a bonus just for the blood flow aspect, because we know that you can help increase the blood flow in the brain with ginkgo. And we also use a lot of bacopa. You and I've used vinpocetine before, which comes from, I think it's the periwinkle plant. Vinpocetine is a really good one. And then I've got a couple formulas with like wild blueberry complex in there. That's really good. And then there's also, I don't know if we mentioned huperzine, which comes from the club moss. Huperzine is a good acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. So people talk about dopamine and serotonin, but I think just as much as GABA, acetylcholine is like a forgotten neurotransmitter, and people don't talk about it, but they should, because if it breaks down too fast, your memory won't be as good. And if you take huperzine, you can keep the acetylcholine in the brain longer, theoretically improving learning and memory.
What other ways can we increase acetylcholine outside of taking it, outside of the huperzines or the other types of compounds you mentioned?
I would say focus on the diet piece too, right? Like you could obviously supplement with like alpha GPC, like the glycerophosphocholene. But as you mentioned, I think earlier about eggs, focusing on eggs is a good source of choline. I want to say seafood. Don't quote me on it, but I want to say seafood is pretty high in choline as well.
Yeah. So your fatty fish, your egg yolks, your liver, avocado, those are going to be your best things for acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is really, really important. Again, you have autoimmune conditions like myasthenia gravis, where you have an autoimmune condition to the postsynaptic acetylcholine neuron. And then you can get this kind of like droopy eyes, droopy face kind of stuff. So acetylcholine is really important. And again, a lot of that's going to be your meat-rich products. And again, there's been research on acetylcholine, right? 800 milligrams a day is ideal. And they find that pregnant women who don't get enough acetylcholine, there's epigenetics that can create increased cortisol and increased stress response in these kiddos born in a acetylcholine poor environment. So that's a really, really important cognitive function. And when you deal with MTHFR issues, making sure there's adequate choline in the diet is very important. Also, building blocks for bile, like really having enough biliary support, because bile is really important for keeping SIBO at bay, right? Bile salts or bile acids, the acids produced when, the acidic environment produced when bile is stimulated and secreted from the gallbladder, can really prevent a lot of SIBO overgrowth. That's why with SIBO, there's a common environment that allows SIBO to form is typically an enzyme low, hydrochloric acid low bile salt environment really is a driving factor for letting SIBO grow. And of course, we know the nutrient deficiencies that can happen with SIBO. And then we can easily draw that back up to the brain, because a lot of these vitamins and minerals are responsible for cognitive function benefits.
Yeah, well, we know there's a link to the thyroid too. If you're hypo, you're under functioning with your thyroid, that can affect your brain. Also, I've seen some stuff about you could just look at the link between hypothyroidism and, say, gallbladder issues, for example, gallstones occurring in a more hypothyroid environment. So if your thyroid's not working properly, let's say you have antibodies going on, and those antibodies could always be rooted back in something from diet or gut. But getting some blood work could be helpful in this too. If you're trying to figure out, hey, what other things have I done? I've worked on my gut. I've worked on my liver. Brain's still not working. Would you agree thyroid would be a good potential other step in this?
Well, anything, if there's a hormone imbalance that's going to affect energy, typically when energy is low, focus and cognitive will be low. It's very rare that someone is tired but has good brain function, meaning memory, retention, verbal fluency, right? They're typically connected. So you need a baseline of energy for your brain to be functioning well. So if there's low thyroid or low adrenal, that definitely needs to be addressed. Now, there's other herbs we can use. Bacopa is another big one that helps modulate a lot of our dopamine and serotonin neurotransmitters. We know dopamine is really important for focus, right? It's also can be burnt up. It can be converted downstream to adrenaline. So if it's adrenal stress, you can burn up dopamine and convert it to adrenaline. Dopamine is also needed for TRH release in the hypothalamus. TRH is the thyroid releasing hormone. It goes from the hypothalamus to the pituitary. The pituitary then makes TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, which then talks to our thyroid to make T4, a little bit of T3, and that T4 gets converted peripherally and at the thyroid receptor site spot as well.
Trying to think of any other things I haven't mentioned from a supplement perspective. Did you mention the omegas?
The amino acids, I think, are really important just because of the fact that they are precursors to all that I just mentioned. Like you just were alluding to, omega-3 is great because one, DHEA is a really important neurological building block. The EPA fat is really anti-inflammatory. So if we have inflammation or cognitive inflammation going on, EPA can be really anti-inflammatory as well.
You said DHEA, but you meant DHA.
No, yeah, DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. That's the 22 fatty acid kind of compound. EPA's eicosapentaenoic acid. That's a 20 carbon fatty acid compound. And then we have the linolenic acid. That's like the flax omega-3. That's an 18 carbon. So we go from 18 to 20 to 22, and the higher up you go, the better.
Yeah, we super important for kids. We got a lot of parents listening. We have a lot of parents that bring kids to us, and a lot of developmental, a lot of I guess I would call it cognitive performance issues at school. Got to make sure the kids are getting enough omegas, because if these kids aren't doing like grass-fed steaks, I mean, you look at the standard American diet for a child. I mean, it's like chicken nuggets and macaroni. I mean, these kids they're getting no DHA. Their brains are just not supported. So, and then, of course, what does the doctor do? They put the kid on like Vyvanse or Ritalin or some other pharmaceutical drug to try to fix the kid's behavioral issues. I mean, Justin and I,
speed.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I mean, you and I've seen so many cases of kids where, like, I just actually saw a kid this morning, a little girl. She's 11 years old. She showed up with H. pylori. She had 4 different parasites, like 6 or 7 different bacterial overgrowth. She had candida overgrowth as well. And the mom's like, well, where did all this come from? Of course, we ask about antibiotic history and all that, but the kid can't focus in school. The poops aren't good. I mean, the behavior's not good. They're moody. It's like, man, if we could just get every kid in the world, get their gut in shape, the world would be a better place. I mean, these things don't discriminate. It don't matter if you're 2 years old or 200 years old. You could still have bugs.
Exactly. Now, other compounds that are great, ginseng's excellent. That kind of falls in the adaptogenic category. I'd also put ashwagandha and rhodiola in that category as well. All right. I mean, they're going to help modulate stress hormones. Some of them have various glycoalkaloids in there that can be immune modulating and can also be a little bit stimulating or adrenal modulating as well. So stimulating where they can bump up cortisol if it's low, but if cortisol goes too high on some, it can have a modulating effect as well, which is nice. And if you look at some of the herbs like ashwagandha, which is one of my favorites, it's, look at herbalists like Stephen Buhner, he kind of gives it the thumbs up as a long-term herbal approach. And it has some really good immunomodulating qualities that people with Lyme can really benefit, or Lyme co-infections can really benefit from. So we like that as well. And then you have your blood flow stimulating compounds like ginkgo is really good. What else outside of ginkgo? I mean, you can do systemic based enzymes to help thin out the blood, which can be really helpful for allowing to improve blood flow. Gotu kola is really good, like I mentioned. On top of that, and then of course for inflammation, like these alpha GPC, these various choline compounds can be really anti-inflammatory to the brain, and then things like resveratrol can be excellent. I went to a conference where a coach was interviewed for one of the major football university. I think it was Oregon or Oregon State, and he talked about that a lot of the college players now are getting like diluted grape juice or diluted like juice grapes after practice, because they found that the resveratrol and some of the modulating compounds in there can help with brain inflammation. So they're starting to wise up to this stuff at the higher collegiate levels where brain trauma is happening. I mean, I would supplement that as well. I mean, these guys are more active, so if there's any extra sugar in there, it's probably not a bad thing, but most people may do better with just the extract without all the extra sugar along with it.
I would agree. Yeah. And it's probably more pure in extract form versus some conventional glyphosate sprayed grapes. You mentioned the fish oil. I mean,
exactly.
We could technically probably say that fish oil would be something for the blood flow, because it is thinning the blood a little bit.
It is thinning the blood. And then your other anti-inflammatories like curcumin as well, I think, are also very helpful because they help reduce inflammation and they can have some immune modulating quality. So I like that. I mean, if you can reduce inflammation, that's going to have a cognitive benefit. If you can reduce inflammation in the brain, like some of these choline compounds and or resveratrol, curcumin compounds, that can also be excellent as well. Anything else you want to highlight there?
Yeah, I would say CBD, cannabidiol. I use it almost every day. I've given it to a lot of my clients.
Benefits,
tons of good benefits, kind of balancing out your CB1, CB2 receptor sites that you have everywhere in the body. Now, some people, if we're talking like from a pain perspective, CBD alone doesn't help that much with the pain. They may need a little bit of THC, but you've got to be in a state where you can access the THC. There's like 30 different states in the US with either medical or recreational. All of our Canada listeners, they just legalize cannabis completely. So the doors are wide open now for people to get it. And, it may only take a small amount, like a 20-to-1 CBD to THC ratio, to really help with pain, inflammation in the brain. I've had some people who they just get miraculous results. Now, it's not a root cause, right? Like, it's not a deficiency of CBD oil. Some may argue there is such thing as an endocannabinoid deficiency. Like, we know cannabinoids are naturally in breast milk. So we could argue that we're built to have these. But I still think the other root causes, you got to hit those first. If this helps you, great, but make sure you still fix your gut. I could have taken all the CBD in the world, but I still had IBS because I had gut issues.
Yeah. And what about beta endorphin? How's beta endorphin connected with CBD? Because beta endorphin is kind of our natural anti-pain antidepressant, right?
I don't know if CBD modulates it. Like, when I think of beta endorphin being modulated, I think of more like kratom, but I don't know if CBD can affect that. I won't say it does because I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I'm looking here right now. It says THC has been shown to stimulate beta endorphin production. And I imagine CBD may as well. So I'm looking at a couple of articles right here.
Or maybe CBD,
Cannabidiol delivered oral by triggering the release of beta endorphin. Yes.
Oh,
so
cool.
There's articles on this that CBD and THC. Now, the problem with THC is, you're going to have some cognitive stuff. I'm not a fan of using any THC before someone's at least 25 years old, because there's an article that came out last week where it can stunt brain development. So a male's not going to have their brain fully formed till about 25. A woman is more 18 to 20. So I'd be very careful on using THC with someone beneath the age of 25. CBD is not going to have the same quite effect. But if you look here, there is some research showing that CBD can stimulate beta endorphin, which is good. Now, here's the thing. What is beta endorphin made of, right? That's the next question. Beta endorphin is actually made of about 19 different amino acids. People like Julia Ross have had really good benefits using DLPA.
I love DLPA.
DL-phenylalanine, which is a kind of isomer of phenylalanine, which is a precursor to tyrosine, but goes more down the beta endorphin pathway. Yeah, I'm looking here. The CB2 receptor agonist can invoke the trigger of release of beta endorphin. So that's the cannabidiol compound. So I think you're seeing this increase in beta endorphin, which is a natural anti-pain, antidepressant compound. We get beta endorphin, the runner's high, right? That's beta endorphin. That workout high, that's beta endorphin. Remember, that molecule is 19 amino acids long. So we need protein to make it. So DLPA and or just good free-form amino acids are going to be important. Good protein absorption, good digestion, and the CBD potentially could help improve that stimulation. But again, when I hear the word stimulate, I'm very careful, because stimulate what? So there's a building, it comes from something, right? So we want to make sure the building blocks to make it are also present as well. I hear stimulate, I think whipping a tired horse, right?
Yes.
You got to be careful.
Yeah, you make a good point. Always going to the root. The amino acids are great. Mm-hmm. Julia Ross is a huge.
Doing both is probably better, right?
Yeah, I wonder if the THC, maybe it helps beta endorphin more, because like I said, some clients report as soon as they add in just a tiny amount, the pain relief is way better. So maybe CBD does it good, and maybe THC does it more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is with the THC, you have the psychoactive components there. You have a little bit of a decrease in memory and motivation, and then you have a little bit slower reaction time. So you have some things, and there's some research there to say, hey, it can decrease cognitive development as well. So if you're going to use THC, don't use it if you're a guy, until your late 20s. And if you need something therapeutic, try moving more towards the CBD end of the spectrum.
Yep. So there was a question here about, is it okay to get resveratrol from red wine, or does alcohol ruin the benefits? I mean, it is so ridiculously silly that you can do that from wine. I mean, that's like freaking marketing from the alcohol industry. There's a study I've got here from PubMed. They call it the analysis of resveratrol in wines, and they're looking at all these different types. For example, most of the red wines tested, they were getting 0.36. This is 0.36 milligrams per liter of wine. We're talking less than half of 1 milligram per liter of wine. I'm sure there's some that have higher, but that was like the average. They found that White wines, they contained an average of 0.5 milligram, so a half of 1 milligram of resveratrol per liter.
Right.
And when Justin and I use a resveratrol supplement, I mean, typically we're doing 500 milligrams, if not more.
Exactly. And again, I mean, when they do these studies, they're probably not testing organic wines, and they're probably not looking at the quality of the wine. So let's just say if you're like there are companies out there that are lab testing their wine and trying to make sure the quality is higher. So if it's organic and the alcohol content's lower, so I know like Dry Creek Wines, they do some lab testing where they choose lower alcohol content and it's organic, you probably may have more of those compounds in it. But I wouldn't say, hey, if you want to have a glass or two of wine every now and then, I don't think it's a big deal. Just choose higher quality ones, but I wouldn't say to yourself, hey, this is going to be the only place I'm going to get this extra resveratrol. I would probably supplement as well on top of that.
Right. Like, so let's say you were trying to do a Lyme protocol, and sometimes we'll use Japanese knotweed that naturally contains the resveratrol. Yep. You know, we're looking at 400 to 500 milligrams. Let's just say your wine was amazing and organic. Maybe it's got 10 milligrams of resveratrol per liter, and you're not going to drink a liter of wine. At least I hope you're not in one sitting.
Yeah, so I think you have a lot of foods that have just negative toxins in there as well, and so that may negate that may be a confounding variable that prevents, you know, let's just say better findings from happening. So I would just say make sure we just have the quality aspect dialed in with the alcohol that you're consuming.
Yep. Well, I know we've got to run. We're both late for our clients, so we should probably
let's just
wrap up.
hit one last thing here. Let's just talk about the pharmaceutical nootropics. So we have things like modafinil or Provigil, which really is used for.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.